All right, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for staying with us. You're watching Morning Cafe. And this morning, I want us to shift gears and talk matters suicide. That is a silent epidemic. September was Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and we understand that that is over, but the conversation around suicide is not something that we can ignore. And this morning in studio, I have Dr. Julius Kimani, that is a counselor, and also I'm expecting that Nasim Nkatha will be joining us very shortly for this conversation. And Nasim is a psychologist and founder Hugs organization. There's so much to talk about in suicide and how we can collectively join hands to prevent the rising cases of suicide in the country. So do interact with us on our socials, TV47 Kenya on Facebook and on YouTube, on X at TV47 Digital. You can tag me as well at @_Dida, and shortly there will be a number on your screen. You can call in live if at all you do have a question for our experts in studio this morning. Karibu sana to the studio one more time. It's been a long time.
Yes.
And I want us to go right into it. We're talking about suicide, right? And this is something that we describe as a silent epidemic. Then why are we talking about suicide being silent in 2025? Despite, you know, the rising cases, then this is something that is still a very silent epidemic.
Now, I will say that a lot of people still carry the stigma of suicide. It's very hard to find families talking about a member who has committed suicide. And of course, if we look at almost, is it 193 countries? 25 still look at suicide as a criminal offense. Now you can imagine if somebody has committed suicide, and that is the notion in some of the nations, and Kenya included, where we still, if somebody attempts suicide, they can be taken to jail, then there is something that needs to change. And of course, you find like the WHO has got what we call the Live Life initiative, where they're trying to encourage us talking about the issue of suicide and seeing how can we be able to prevent suicide. You can imagine almost every year, about 800,000 to 1 million people lose their lives to suicide.
Right.
Now, if you can put those people together, 1 million people. Now that is almost the entire of Mombasa. We have about a population of slightly over 1-point-something million in Mombasa. You can imagine all that population in 1 year wiped out by this thing called suicide. And if we don't talk about it, we don't come open about it, then we'll continue to see rising cases of suicide every year. Because most people, number one, even those who are suicidal, they don't want to talk about it because it is a stigma to say that you're thinking suicide, you're feeling suicidal. Number two, most people, when they hear somebody wants to commit suicide, they see a person who is has no character. Somebody who does not have the right behavior. How can you be thinking about suicide? Instead of thinking about how can I help you? Yani wewe unawezaje kunafikiria kujiua? Hiyo ni upuzi gani? Even some people have been beaten off. Pala mtu amechapwa vita ati kwa sababu they attempted suicide. These are some of the things, some of the narratives that we need to change from this time.
Right.
Yes.
Then what leads somebody to that particular point where now their thoughts are strictly suicidal? If you're talking about, of course, if you tell somebody that you're suicidal and then they're going to throw words at you and judge you as to why your mindset has shifted towards that particular point where you're now suicidal, then what leads somebody to that particular point?
You see, I would say human beings, habits are, we all tend to run away from anything that causes pain. So when this person is running towards what is causing pain, then there must be a pain that is, to them, looks smaller than death. And of course, there are so many factors that contribute to suicidal thoughts. And number one big factor is hopelessness. There is a situation that has made that person to feel hopeless, and they feel like the pain of death is lesser compared to the pain of living. And of course, we are looking at, when we look at people who have attempted suicide, there are many contributing factors. There are those people who have seen suicide in their family, and therefore, from their social interactions, they have seen one of the ways of dealing with a situation is actually committing suicide. For example, when a father commits suicide because of the challenges of life, you have already sent a message to the children that if things get hard, then probably that is the right way. Of course, there are people who have got adopted, what we can call almost say adopted capabilities of committing suicide. People who have gone through pain naturally. For example, people who have, like somebody who has gone through physical abuse when they were growing up. They have become adapted somehow to physical pain. People who have gone through verbal abuse, sexual abuse, for them they somehow have got adaptive capabilities to pain. Therefore, suicide is one of the ways when, if challenges exceed, they can easily take it because they see it, they're used to pain. So there are so many factors that contribute, which I believe we shall be looking at each one.
Deeper into them.
Yes.
Right. Let's welcome in Nasim Katha. Nasim is a psychologist and founder of HUGS organization. Karibu sana. This is Morning Cafe. And I want to understand first what you do at HUGS organization before we get deeper into this conversation.
Okay, so thank you for welcoming me. HUGS is an acronym for Hardiness and Earth Great Success. It started off as a suicide awareness organization, including depression. And then we transitioned into every other mental health, aspect. So what we do is we create awareness around mental health. We also offer advocacy, and we have different programs within the organization, like mental health campus tours where we visit universities, talk about mental health, and other types of events too. So yeah, that's what we basically do.
All right, so you've dealt with a lot of people maybe who are suicidal, now that you said you started with as suicide awareness, right? And I would love to understand how that has shifted, the patterns of, this suicide. If we're looking at it from, right now we're talking about men are committing suicide more than women. They say that women, we think about it, but we don't actually do it. But men, they're silent with it and then they end up doing it. Then have you seen that shift in any way in regards to age and also the reception as to how we communicate matters suicide?
Things have changed, obviously, from when we started. It started around 2020. And things have changed, whereby people are more vocal, not as much as we'd hope for, but they are communicating about it, but the stigma still sticks. Because when someone talks about suicide, there's certain stereotypes that happen, whereby someone will say it's either they're seeking attention or they're weak if they're contemplating suicide. So the stereotypes are still there, the stigmas are still there. And that's why now we need such forums whereby we can advocate for mental health, including suicidal ideations, and change the narrative. So yes, nothing much has changed per se, like how we'd hoped things would have changed by now. But we're getting there. We're doing more like baby steps. We're making one step ahead and then a few back, but we're on the right path, I might say.
All right. And Dr. Rina, what do we need to do to get to that point where suicide is not something that is stigmatized and it's something that we can have open conversations about, that we can walk into, say, a church and talk and, see a preacher talk about, oh, if you're suicidal, 1, 2, 3, just advising the congregation. This is something that we can walk into a classroom and talk about without being stigmatized. Then how can we get to that point?
No, the first thing is that people have to understand that suicide is not a behavior. It is actually a mental disorder. Just like you find your liver can fail you, your lungs can fail you, your heart can fail you, your eyes can fail you, your brain also can fail you. And so people have to understand that somebody who is thinking about suicide, which is not, death is not something everybody likes. In fact, we all run away from death. If today we are told that death is in north, we'll all be walking towards south. So when somebody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to kill myself, that is not a normal behavior. That is something very wrong in their mind, and it's actually a sickness. Until we agree that suicidal thoughts or suicidal attempts is actually a mental disorder or a mental sickness, then we will still continue criminalizing suicide. And instead of helping these people, you'll find you are actually pushing them towards that direction more. You can imagine if somebody has, and God forbid, cancer, and they go to hospital, and the doctors begin to tell you, or people begin to tell you, it's because of your unhealthy eating habits. That's why you have cancer. Get out of the hospital. I mean, that would be so horrible. So anybody who is thinking of suicide, we need to see them, number one, as sick. I remember handling situations, several of them, where family members have come in because a member has committed suicide. And one of the things they express is anger, because they're like, how can he do this?
Towards the person?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, how could he kill himself? Or how could she kill himself? I mean, why didn't he talk to any of us? And some people will say, we have done everything. We have provided everything, and this person still commits suicide. But when we bring the true perspective that this is a sickness, and they begin to see it that way, you'll find a lot of people even find healing. Because I've seen children who have been angry with a parent who has committed suicide. I have seen parents who have been so annoyed that their son or their daughter committed suicide. But the moment they begin to see that this is not just a behavior or a character flaw, and they see it as a mental disorder and a sickness, then they begin to see the situation in a different way. So the key thing is we need to advocate, like she's saying, for people to see that suicide is not just anything. It is a sickness.
All right. And actually, this is something that is quite underreported. We do agree that even as we talk about this data that is available by the WHO, then there's much that we're not talking about and reporting. And from the people that you're dealing with, who do you deal with the most? Is it the young people, the old? Who come to you, or who do you see as people, you know, who go ahead with these suicidal thoughts and actually end up dying by suicide?
You will find, unless you create an atmosphere for somebody to come up and say it, very few people will come up and say, I'm feeling suicidal. Because as we said, it is still something that there is stigma about it.
Yeah.
But you will find most of the times people who have actually women are easier to speak about feeling suicidal thoughts than men. Because for us men, we think being suicidal is a weakness. And that continues to be our mentality. And therefore you find women and girls are more easier to open up about feeling suicidal than men. Men have to find a very comfortable space where they know that nobody or the person that they are going to will not judge them as being weak. Otherwise, you can be sitting with a man today and you can be having a great conversation, laughing about life, and eventually in the evening you hear the guy committed suicide. And everybody would be like, si tulikuwa naye jana. See, he was even laughing. Right. He even gave us some of his cash. And then he's gone. So I think women are more, because women tend to speak to anyone or anything.
Yeah.
And men tend to speak to only people they can really, really, really trust. Yes.
All right. And Nasim, is it that these people who are suicidal, do they always communicate, but we ignore the things that they say, or they never communicate at all? Because maybe, say, if you're talking about somebody's here, then by evening we hear that they died by suicide. Then are there always things that they say, but we're not listening to them?
Yes. So allow me to first of all define certain terms.
Yeah.
When it comes to suicide, there are two types of suicidal ideation, active and passive. So passive is whereby, I normally like saying, majority of us have gone through it, where life has gotten so hard for a certain period of time that for a split second, you think you'd be better off dead than being alive, based on what is happening around you. But it's not an active thought, it's just a thought in passing. And then now we have the active suicidal ideation. Now this is where the thought is literally active. You'll find for such people, and also, I'd also want to state that suicide also has stages. I don't know if you knew this. There's some certain stages to suicide. So there are basically 3 stages.
Right.
Ideation, where it's just a thought. Planning, whereby you start thinking, I can do this, I can do that, and everything. And then now there's the execution stage, which is now what Dr. Ri was kind of explaining. In the execution stage, it's very critical that it mimics healing. You might find, I don't know if you've spoken about symptoms of suicide, whereby the person isolates, the person doesn't hang out with people, they're constantly depressed and everything. But now on the execution stage, the person seems bubbly, happy. And that's why you hear cases like, oh my God, so-and-so took their own life and he had started healing. We hung out na yeye, we had fun and everything, and then all of a sudden they took their life. So in that stage, execution stage, professionals term it as autopilot, because as human beings we have three consciouses: conscious, unconscious, and subconscious. Subconscious is what controls our innate desires. So when this ideation sinks into your subconscious, literally it's like you don't have any control of it. Think of it as yawning. You don't think, let me yawn, it just happens. Yeah. So that's what basically happens in the execution stage. And that's why someone lasts 48 hours. And that's why you have something called 72-hour suicide watch, whereby you're put in an institution for 72 hours. Those are 3 days just to monitor you. They monitor you weekend and lose, they're with you and everything, just to make sure you've surpassed the 48 hours stage or window that is left to the execution stage. And also understanding that in these 3 stages, it doesn't mean that they follow each other, that you'll move from ideation to planning to execution. They're not sequentials in the sense that you might skip from ideation all the way to execution within a very short period of time. And now understanding what happens behind that is also very important. In the active suicidal ideation, there are people we call risk factors, one of them being men, in the sense that, like what he said, men rarely talk about their issues. When a man, I feel like men are more of solution oriented. So when their mind is fixated on something, they find a solution. If the solution tells them it's suicide, then that's it. They don't go either way around it. And then another thing is people with mood disorders. These are things like bipolar, depression, and all that. Then they're at high risk factors when it comes to suicidal ideation. Now, what happens is in the passive ideation, someone might say it in jokingly. Unajua naweza jirusha pahali, unajua naweza fanya hivi, and then we take it as a joke. So it's very important. Anything that is said in regards to suicide should be taken as serious as it is. As much as they're saying it with a smile or laughing or just joking, kwani amjui jokes or something, you should really take it as serious. So, but now the problem with our society is we'll take that as attention seeking, because this person has been singing this thing for years and they've never actually done it. Instead of really listening to them and figuring out where do we need, how do you need us to help you, where can we get help and everything. So I feel like the community, we are normally deaf when it comes to certain situations, especially mental health related. Because I normally say it's easier if you have a physical pain, whereby you can say, I have a broken leg. People can see that, can sympathize with that. But when it comes to emotional pain, it's hard for you even yourself to explain where this pain is coming from. So that becomes very hard for people around you to pay attention to that. And also understanding that there are many causes to suicidal ideation, but there are 2 main leading causes: isolation and feeling like a burden. And most of the time, we isolate from our loved ones. You don't isolate from strangers, and you feel like a burden when it comes to your loved ones. So it means we need to pay attention more as towards the people that are around us and are close to us. Yes.
I would love for you to expound on that point where the change of mood, right from the ideation stage to execution, then how is it that they become so happy before execution? What leads to that change of mood?
I feel it's because the thought has already sunk in and they've made peace with it. So let me explain something. When it comes to the ideation stage, the thought is there, but the fear of death surpasses the thought. So the person, yes, thinks of doing it, but they're more scared of death as they are of actually doing it, or what is making them to want to actually do it. So when it comes to the execution stage, they've already made peace with it. So they find their worldview changes, their perception changes, and they're comfortable with it. So everything else for them, they become bubbly. Maybe for some, they feel like this is the last memory my loved ones would have of me. So I might as well, make it easier for them to remember me as a bubbly person, as a nice person and everything. But technically it's just that the thought is already made and they're at peace with it. Yes.
Doctor, can you change the mind of somebody who has gotten to that point where they've made peace with the fact that they want to commit suicide?
Yeah, it's possible. You know, it's just one, if somebody shares, you see, by the time somebody is committing suicide, they have reasons. And you say, we've talked about hopelessness. Somebody seeing that the present pain that they are going through cannot be, it's much higher than compared to actually taking the life out. And the thing that one needs to see and one needs to understand, a lot of empathy. Because people who are suicidal, they actually want to talk. They have gone through issues, but they find nobody to talk to. And most of the people, when you talk about suicide, nataka kujiua, most of the times utaambiwa wewe waacha kufikiria vitu kaa hizo. Hiyo ni ujinga gani? Especially for men. Especially for men, unasikia mtu anakuambia hiyo ni ujinga gani unajaribu wewe? Wewe ni mwanaume wa aina gani? But they don't realize that this person has actually opened up, hoping they will get help. And that's why they will always give those signs. The isolation. They are trying to say, there is something that I'm struggling with. The carelessness of, for example, dressing. They are trying to send out signals. But because we are too blind to see and we think that they are seeking attention, we ignore. But I remember one guy coming in and saying, I'm actually suicidal, I want to take myself out. And he had planned everything, put out everything in order, how they are going to do it. And I remember sitting down with this person and I told them, now look at death. What is actually taking you towards suicide? It was debts. He had debts and debts and debts. And I was like, this debt is not death. But here you are ready to take death. That is so final. What scares people, you're actually running towards it. Now, if you can actually face a death, then you are a very brave person that you can actually turn back and fight death. Because death is not death. And so, changing the perspective, in fact, the guy opened up and he was like, I never thought I'm this brave. Because when I can actually take death and I'm running away from death, then I think I'm a very strong person. So yes, it is possible to change somebody's perspective, but the key of changing that perspective is what we say, listening. You know, if the world would only listen more without judging, I think suicide would be less. Because anybody that has committed suicide has always tried to say something, but they were not listened to. And therefore, what I would say, organizations need to create, I think it's very important to have counseling. Counselors even for organizations. We need to have counselors in schools. Someone knows that I can go to this person and I can share my thoughts, my frustrations, without being judged. Because most of the times when somebody speaks, almost, let's say, 80% of the load goes away. They know somebody, I have offloaded, there's somebody thinking about me than just being isolated on their own. Right. So it's possible to change someone's mind. Actually, very easy.
Is it very easy, Nasim, to change somebody's mind?
Easy? It can be easy because I feel like all we need is a safe space to feel comfortable enough to open up and share, you know. And then there's this thing we normally do that also makes it very hard for people to share. Someone comes to you, opens up and says, I'm feeling suicidal and everything. And then for you, you're there telling them, oh my God, think about your parents, think about all the loved ones that you'll leave behind and everything.
Gaslighting.
Yes. Don't you think this person has thought of that before coming up to that, you know, final decision and everything? So I feel we also need to really use empathy in the sense that what would you want to hear if you were in that situation? Because I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want to hear someone reminding you of all the amazing things you're leaving behind and everything. You've already thought of that. So I feel like we need to become more proactive when it comes to such conversations and have these conversations intentionally. Another thing that we normally do that also kind of pisses me off is when someone shares their traumas and everything, and then for you, for a weird reason, you feel the need to share yours. Oh, unajua pia mimi juzi nilikuwa hivi, and it's about that person in that particular moment. So that's what makes it hard for people to seek help. in the sense that they know either way you'll start judging them, reminding them of all these other things and everything. But imagine if you just sat there and asked this person, how can I be there for you? How would you want me to help you? Majority of the time they'll tell you, I'm not sure how, but I just want you around. And that's more than enough. If you can move in with them for a couple of days, be there for them, help them around the house, communicate, talk, and then things will change, and this person will be more than willing to now seek professional help. Another thing is, we are not our friends' therapists. So always find a way to connect them or link them to a professional, because you will talk about it, you'll banter about it, but at the end of the day, this person needs professional help. So yeah.
All right, we'll be getting deeper into that professional help, because I've had a lot of people don't trust therapists and just going to therapists to open up. And let's just talk about it now, because they're very skeptical about opening up. When I say you just sit there and watch, and maybe deep inside, then you're judging what this other person from this other side is saying to you. And of course, by the end of that conversation, you might of course offer help. But now the fear of what is going on at the back of your head, of your head for you as a therapist and a psychologist or a counselor, then how do you also address that bit?
Personally, I normally tell also my clients that the most important thing you can have with a therapist or psychologist or a counselor is rapport, creating a good rapport. I normally tell my clients, if we start sessions and then in between the sessions you realize we don't have a good rapport, you might feel maybe I'm judging you, of which maybe I'm not, but you have some second thoughts around it and everything, then that's your cue to terminate the therapeutic relationship. You need to have a counselor that you have a good rapport with, a counselor that offers a safe space for you. And another thing, when we do sessions, there are certain forms you normally go through, informed consent form. In that informed consent form, it also talks about your rights as a client. So it's very important for the clients to understand their rights, in the sense that just because we've started sessions with you, it's not cast on stone that I'm supposed to be your therapist forever. If you feel you're not comfortable, you can always communicate with the therapist, and they can help you get another therapist that you have a good rapport with. Because again, there's certain people, there are things we call nonverbal cues, whereby you will be sharing your story and I'm quiet, but my facial expression, my body language is just giving, oh God, hey, but if you feel your therapist, so when we're being trained, we're normally trained on nonverbal cues, how to make the client feel comfortable around you and everything. But if the client doesn't feel that, then you need to terminate that therapeutic relationship, because at the end of the day, it's not about you as a therapist, it's about your client. And if they feel they're not comfortable, then you're not going to help them. Because the minute I feel judged, I won't be able to open up. And the interesting thing about therapy is we curate treatment plans based off on what you tell us. And if there's something you're hiding, then the treatment plan 100% won't work, because I won't have the whole information. So I would just say rapport is the most important thing. And as a client, you have all the right to terminate therapeutic relationship. You don't need to stick around someone that you don't feel comfortable with.
All right. And Dr. Inasi mentioned something about sometimes one of the signs that somebody would see is that they isolate themselves from their loved ones. But let's take a look at it from, say, work perspective. You see a colleague comes in, and what sense should I look out for and say, you know, this colleague of mine nowadays, there's the way he or she is acting, and maybe he or she is not well mentally. Then what are these signs that I should look out for in a colleague? Because we are not in love. You see, because you mentioned something about loved ones, the isolation from loved ones. Then if you're coming to work, then what should I look out for as a colleague?
Of course, it's one thing that what these people tend to is to pull away from people. So somebody who was talking to people, greeting people, suddenly they are silent. And of course, you know, sadness, we have a face. Our face tells a lot. And I think what we, especially in Africa, what we avoid is we don't like looking at faces. We have been told from the time we were young that looking somebody direct in the eye is disrespect. But you see, a face tells a lot. Let me tell you, it's possible to see somebody who is sad. The countenance has changed. So we need to start looking out at that person who has now used to talk and is not talking. Or he doesn't talk a lot, But suddenly he has taken a demeanor that they just want to, even they're sitting alone, they don't want to speak a lot. That is one thing. Number two, we also need to look at some of the cues. Maybe you will find if it is for ladies, sometimes you can see they are visiting the washrooms too much. And they come out from that place, their eyes are red. That means that person could have been crying in that place. For most men, the natural tendency is anger. You'll find somebody is responding angrily to people because they're feeling, you guys don't understand me. So they can snap back at people, and you're able to tell there's something wrong because anger is a sign of an inner pain. Somebody is telling you, get off my space. That's why they are shouting at you. They want you away from that space. Something else. Now, we see you today, you are all dressed nicely, and suddenly you have no makeup, you don't comb your hair, the way you used to wear trendy, you have stopped all that. That is another sign. Somebody begins to abuse alcohol. They come to work and they never used to, maybe they even used to drink, but now they are doing it over and they don't seem to care. Those are some of the things that we need to be watching out. But the thing is, our body speaks a lot. If somebody was full of life and suddenly their shoulders are, they sit somewhere, they are
slouching all the time.
They are staring at one place for too long. They are not eating, and they used to eat like 4 chapatis during lunch. There must be something wrong. So we need to have a society that looks out for each other, even at the workplace. Let us just pay attention a little bit if somebody has begun to change. Yes.
All right. And Nasim, you talked about passive suicide and also active suicide. And I'm wondering, does this passive suicide grows into active, or for people who are suicidal, and we talk about the ideation stage and then the actualization stage, then does it grow, or once you see majority of us go through that stage where it's just passive, we just say it and brush it off, but does it grow? Or people just, it gets to a point where it's now just active?
It does grow, but before I answer that, I'd like to add something to what he said in terms of what to look out for. Because most of the time we normally look at the downers, the low moods and everything. But there is something we call high-functioning depression, whereby you find a colleague, maybe they were not as active as they are currently. So you find they're always on time at work. Their behavior's literally done a whole 360 turn. They're productive, proactive, and everything. Or if it's someone you're hanging out with, they were not as hyper or bubbly, but now they're all the way hyper. They're currently the life of the party and everything and all that. And then when they go back home, they're crying and they're depressed. So they do this to mimic what they're feeling deep down. So I don't know if you've seen this advert for, it normally happens during Suicide Awareness Month. 2 guys are at a match. One of them is way hyper, celebrating, cheering and everything. And the other one is just kawaida, chill. And the one that is hyper is the one that ends up dying by suicide. So that is something to note. Another thing is risky behaviors. Like you said, the cases are very underreported. In the sense that if someone crosses the road and gets hit by a car, it will considered an accident, not suicide. But now risky behavior is something to take note on. Someone that is constantly maybe picking fights with bouncers, hoping to get beaten up and die in the process, or someone mwenye anavuka tu barabara venye anataka, or diving into deep waters that no one should do that and everything. So risky behaviors is also something that can tell you that someone is contemplating suicide or something is off. Now back to your question.
Yes.
Yes. Passive.
Well said.
Yes. Passive suicidal ideations can grow into active suicidal ideation, in the sense that, and that's why it's very important, it doesn't matter how little it is, the minute someone vocalizes it and sees it as a joke and something should be taken serious. Because what happens is, the reason as to why some end up transitioning to active and some don't, is resilience, coping mechanisms and everything. When it comes to mental health, there are certain terms that people throw around, but I don't know if they understand. Mental wellness. When you talk about mental wellness, I normally like phrasing it as gym ya akili, the way healthy eating and everything, the way you take care of your physical wellness is the same way you need to take care of your mental wellness. So things like affirmations, gratitude, mindfulness, exercise, these are things you need to be doing on a daily to help you build some sort of resistance when hard times come, because life, it's structured to, you know, have ups and downs. So when those situations happen, you need to learn how to push back. You need to learn how to be more resilient and everything. So for someone that doesn't have a healthy wellness when it comes to their mental health, then high chances it can transition into active suicidal ideation. So if you've ever had suicidal ideation, even if it was just passing, then you need to take extra care of your mental health. Another thing that maybe we should have mentioned is, when you talk about causes, I don't know if you knew this, but suicidal ideations are also genetic.
That you mentioned, but you can expand on it.
Yes, in the sense that you can find in the village, they'll be like, ile familia watoko ujua or something. So knowing there's a history or in regards to suicidal cases or suicidal ideations in your family, then it means you might be predisposed to the suicidal ideations and everything. So it means you need to take extra care of your mental wellness so that it never gets to that. Because like what Dr. said, what causes suicidal ideations is also our environmental factor and our social factors. That's why some psychological conditions are called psychosocial condition, based on how you interact with people around you and everything, and what is happening around you. So if you learn how to take extra care of yourself, because you know, the same way you know maybe in our family we have diabetes, so I need to take extra care of myself because I might easily get diabetes. It doesn't mean 100% you will, but you are predisposed to it. So understanding your family history when it comes to mental health is also very important in regards to how you take care of yourself and how you protect yourself around the situation.
All right. And Dr. I don't know if you remember, but during that time last year, during the Gen Z protest and also this year around the finance bill, we were hearing a lot of conversations that, oh, you're messing with people who are not afraid of death. And that is something that, you know, is brushed off. We were not paying too much attention to that particular statement. And we saw it a lot on social media, that, you know, people who are walking to parliament, people who are intending to walk to State House, they do not care about anything. And it's not that it's one person, it's not two people. There are a lot of people, a lot of the young people who are thinking about that and talking about that. Then does it mean that us as a nation, that we are not listening to people like, say, the young people, because it's majority of them, they're the young people, obviously. So are they saying something to us and we are not paying attention to that in regards to, say, just suicidal thoughts and suicide prevention?
Yeah, we need to be, you see, there are always cues. When people reach a place where they are not afraid of death, even when they have been told that there's a possibility of dying, then something has pushed them to that level. And that is one of the things that we're talking about, hopelessness. Somebody wakes up in the morning, he doesn't have breakfast, he doesn't know whether he will eat lunch, he doesn't know whether he will eat supper. Now that person is facing death daily. And he reaches a place like the lepers in the Bible that said, if we stay here, we die. If we go in there, we may die also. But it is better to try than not to. And I'm not supporting what they did. But all I'm simply saying is that we need to realize that, yes, there is a problem. And we can't keep on hiding from this reality, because we are churning out educated people who have hope for jobs, and suddenly there are no jobs. And this person keeps on living on the promises of one day life will change. And then that life will change, there is no clear-cut strategies on how this life is supposed to change. Then that is a sign that there is a serious trouble. Secondly, I believe as a nation, we need to come up with strategies where we are preparing minds of young people in school. And I believe probably that's what CBC is doing, where people are not going to school to be employed, because that has been the narrative for the longest time possible. Get a job, go to school, get education, get employed. and then they reach a place, and I'm not saying employment is wrong, but how many organizations are being started every single day? Today, if you look at our country, sorry to say, there are so many organizations that have closed down. Jobs have been lost. So if you are releasing, let's say, something like 500 people who were once working and they have never done anything else, it's employment, and they were never prepared to do their own small businesses, then there is likely to be a danger. So what I think is it's something that we need to look at. Number two, we also need to give young people skills, life skills. Some of these things that we say about mental awareness, where you can be able to pick up, if your heart is aching, for example, physically, or you had an injury on your knee, you know that there is an injury, and you can even look for liniment for it. But many of us are not even aware when your mind or you have a mental issue. In fact, I've gone to organization. I do trainings for organizations for mental health. Now, when they open up that thing of mental health, actually a big percentage, especially men, don't want to attend. Because wanafikiria mental health, nyinyi ni machizi, mnakuja kutengenezwa, mkona akili mbaya. But we need to be aware that term mental health, I don't know, maybe it needs to be changed. It needs to be changed. But the thing is, a lot of people, when they hear mental health awareness, they consider themselves, mimi siko madhare, kwa hivyo siendi pale. And they don't realize that it is something that I can actually change. So we need to have such things even in schools, where people can understand what is actually mental health. When is it that probably your mental health is deteriorating? If people know that, then we would have a better society. Yes.
Nasim, talk to us about the nexus between social media and mental health. Do you think that it helps, or it's something that it's contributing to the rise in suicide cases? Because if you're talking about sometimes, you go that social media, you see people sensitizing each other about suicide and what the steps that they should be taking. But from where you sit, do you think it's saving lives or just harming lives?
I would say it's a two-ended sword, in the sense that it cuts both sides. And at the same time, it depends what you're using social media for. I mean, we've seen whereby people are educating each other when it comes to mental health matters. They are changing the narrative, they're changing certain stigmas and everything. And at the same time, there's the other end of the internet, where you get cyberbullied, there's a lot of self-comparison that happens when you get online and everything. And that's why it's very important to always take a time, take a break, social media break. You don't need to be on social media 24/7. And at the same time, as an adult, or I'm assuming if you're on social media, you are an adult,
right.
Then you need to know what you're using that social media for. Follow pages that feed whatever it is that you need, whatever it is that you're looking for and everything. And also at the same time, before I finish, I'd like to mention something that he was saying, understanding the terms that we use, because I know I've gone into rooms and asked people, how many of you have mental health? And no one raises their hand because they assume mental health means mental illness. And that is very different. But when you ask them, how many of you have physical health, you'll see hands starting to raise because they walk, they do this. So mental health in layman's term ni afya akili, and we all have that. So understanding that is very important. And then understanding these little terms is very important to help in changing the narrative, because what is the negative of it is mental illness or disorders. That is what we don't want, but we all have mental health. So understanding that, I feel like, would go a very long way in terms of advocacy, in terms of changing our mindsets around the topic, sensitizing it rather. So.
All right, and Nasim, for your final remark, and now that, say, somebody has told me that, they're having these suicidal thoughts, then how do I respond to them? How do I talk to them in a manner that empathizes and not, I know sympathy is not something that works for them, but in a manner that empathizes with them and lets them know that, it's okay not to be okay?
So the first thing is, don't start reminding them of all the amazing things this world has to offer. They've already thought of that. Another thing is empathy. We've talked about empathy, putting yourself in this person's shoes, and most importantly, asking questions. I know we have this mindset that if I ask someone if they're suicidal, watamka, wendo ajue immediately. No, it's very important to always, if you're noticing these behaviors that we've mentioned, risky behavior, isolation and everything, always feel free in a good way to ask someone, are you suicidal? And if you are, how can I help you? What kind of help would you want me to offer you? What is causing this? Do you know what is causing it? At times people might not know the exact thing that is causing it. So just offer a listening ear to this person and offer us, I will repeat again, safe space. What does that safe space look like? Non-judgmental, you know? When someone is talking to you about these things, take it seriously and don't offer sympathy. Because another thing that we'll start doing is saying, Aki, this is what is happening to you. Don't do that. Just listen to this person. And at the same time, I know right now we have a lot of hotlines that I know most people, when they think about therapy, they think wanaenda kulipa an arm and, you know, for it. But there are certain places that offer free mental health services, free calls whereby you can just call someone and talk to them and everything. And it's really sad that people don't know
what
about
are the hotlines?
We have Befrienders, we have Chiromo, we have the Red Cross hotline. I think it's 1199. So you just make a call and they'll reach out to you. But now the problem in such calls is at times they're not 24 hours. Because I know around last year I've had calls at 3 a.m. Someone is frantic, they want me to send a message to their parent because they want to do it immediately. So I think another thing that we can also try to do when it comes as a society is interagency compliances, in the sense that not just therapists are supposed to be dealing with this, but also training community leaders like police forces and everything on PFA. PFA is psychological first aid. Because I feel like if we had that connection, then it becomes easier for someone when they call you at 3 a.m. I know I've been called at 3 a.m. and then the person disconnects their phone. So I'm trying to reach them. I don't know where they are. I can't reach to a parent and tell them your kid is thinking of this because that will cause another panic. So if I could have been able to reach to a cop, trace the person without this person ending up in jail, because it's just last year that they decriminalized suicide. And last year, I think late last year. So if we had such trainings and sensitized mental health in the sense that you know you can easily call a cop, go trace the person, take that person to hospital instead of jail, then it would go a long way.
Right. Okay. And Julius, Dr. Julius, as we wind up, the triennial theme for suicide awareness is changing the narrative. How that is 2024 to 2026. How does that look like? Changing the narrative. How do we do that?
One, we have to try as much as we can to limit access to how people, you know, the things that people will use to commit suicide. For example, you find a lot of people use poison. People will hang themselves. People will jump off buildings. So limiting such access. Let us, if you're building a house, you know, a lot of today you find apartments, huko juu, they have spaces where somebody can easily climb up and jump out. It is now limiting the access of some of the use. And you know, men are the ones who will use the crudest things. They will jump off, they will hang. You know, women, sometimes they will do some milder things. Number two, also, when it comes to the media houses, responsible reporting. You know, there are times where we say, we keep on reporting people have committed suicide. That term already committed is already, it feels it's an action term. More the word to be used would be something like he died by suicide. Then also, this is to the country. Create access to health care. Because if somebody knows that I can walk in somewhere and talk to somebody who will listen, a police station, a hospital, a school, a church, that would be very, very good. And of course, giving our young people, because suicide is usually committed people between 15 and their early 20s. Those are the people who are the biggest number. So we need also to give them life skills, to be able to know how to cope with stress. And I will say to a parent, who is listening, the aspect of giving your child everything they're asking for, you're actually preparing them for suicide more than anything. Because outside here, you will not get everything you want.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, and we have a comment here. Gladson Mbwamu is saying this is very timely, and as Daktari, kuna many things happening out here as far as demonizing suicide is concerned. Does he think that weak systems like mental health funding and information sharing are the main problems, or kuna zingine hidden? And he says lack of funding and information. All right, I don't know if we do have time for that, but just in 30 seconds, Daktari. In 30 seconds, you can respond to that.
I will say one thing. We need, as much as we can, from pastors, teachers, leaders, to be aware of, you've said something that I was not even aware of, the law. Then now it's not crime to commit suicide.
Yes.
But now we also need to realize that when somebody is suicidal, they are not criminals.
Yes.
Let's remove that tag. Number two, let us talk about it. Let us talk about it in an open way. The need for people to understand that suicide is something that can happen in a family, in a school, and help those people. Create an open desk anywhere, even pastors, even in mosques, where people can be able to know that being suicidal is not necessarily a negative thing, but it is something that, of course it's negative, but it's something that somebody needs to say, I can find somebody to talk to.
Right.
We need to do that. And of course funding, so that offices like those who are offering free counseling can be open. That somebody can just simply walk in and go to that and say, nasikia kujiua. Then they have a genuine person who is there to listen.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That is Dr. Julius Kimani, a counselor, and of course Nasim Katha, a psychologist, and as a founder at HUG's organization. Thank you so much for making time for us to have this very, very crucial conversation around suicide. That is the silent epidemic, and that is the conversation you're having this morning. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation on our social media platforms, but it doesn't end here. You can continue to interact with us on X at TV47 Digital, and on Facebook and YouTube as well at TV47 Kenya. My name is Anne Odida. Thank you so much for watching. Good morning.